Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on how T-Mobile taps into researcher-driven AI for Qual and Quant insights. My name is Aneesh. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO here at NIT, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Tara Kenneway, Senior Brand Strategist and Insights at T-Mobile. Tara, thank you so much for being here. Really excited for our conversation today. Why don't we kick things off by you sharing a little bit more about your role and the research you're doing over at T-Mobile?
Sure. Thanks, Anish. I'm really excited to be here as well. At T-Mobile, we have, as you can imagine, a very robust number of researchers. And the team that I lead is focused on brand strategy, insights, as well as product development and innovation. So really two big buckets that are nicely complementary of each other.
Awesome. Well, Tara, we're super excited to share and chat a little bit more about how our two teams have been working together and the research you've been running on NIT. For those of you hearing about us for the first time, think of us at NIT as an AI platform that helps you run agency quality, quant, and qual research, but at DIY costs and speed. We do this through our philosophy and technology of researcher-driven AI, which we'll be talking a little bit more about today. But the way it works is up top, we take the time to really understand how you and your organization runs research. We make sure that's reflected in our AI, which then generates your questionnaire, your analysis plan. It programs and fields a study for you. And within 24 hours of the data being fielded, generates a top line report for you, which answers your key business and research objectives, shares key takeaways, and then finally, we have a suite of AI analytics tools that you can then use to continue exploring all that data with ease. For our customers, NIT really helps in three key buckets. The first is it helps you run more research because we get you to that top line within 24 hours. We're hearing from our partners they're running anywhere from 2 to 3 times as much research with NIT as they were before NIT. It helps you run both quant and qual research in a single study. You can run both, you can gather both the what and the why by our AI helping you combine and analyze both of those types of data sets together. And it helps you automate a lot of the time-intensive aspects of running research. This allows you to focus on what really matters, which is how do you take these insights and drive action with it inside your business? So Tara, I know we've been working together for almost a year now. Time definitely flies. And when we first started chatting and working together, you mentioned that there were some really big opportunities that you saw for your team to really lean into when it comes to your research workflows. Can you share a little bit more about what those opportunities you saw for your team?
Absolutely. And I think that these three areas that I'm going to chat about are part of why NIT has been sticky with us. My team runs a lot of proof of concepts with new potential vendors. And NIT has been very sticky. We want to come back, and this is kind of how that relationship has developed over the last year. But three areas that I wanted to chat, two of which are really pain points, and one of which is a best practice are outlined here. The first is around sample, and we'll get into a little bit more of that, but I think probably all the listeners right now can relate to the challenges that we have in the bot world and needing to ensure that you're getting insights from actual humans. So that's been a tough nut. The second one here is around bringing the voice of the customer into our research. This for us is just a common best practice, and we're always looking for really new and innovative tools to make this easier and faster. And then finally, speed. Speed is just another constant pain point for us. There are the things that we can plan for, and then the things that are just constantly flying. And so this end-to-end solution being so quick for us without compromising the integrity of the insights has been really game-changing for us.
That's awesome. Well, I know we'll be spending a couple minutes here diving into each one of those. And why don't we just start off by diving into the sample quality first? You just mentioned, Tara, that you in the past you've had some challenges with sample quality. Curious if you can expand a little bit more on what those challenges that you were facing were.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I was just thinking about this morning because in a lot of our big quant surveys, we tend to use, among all the other different ways you can, try to cleanse that data and ensure you're not talking to bots. But one of the things we often employ are open ends. And even when you look at open ends, we did this recently just to sort of research on our own research. We looked at open ends from a really robust survey, and they were just full of nonsense. And so it was another sort of like constant reminder that even, with all the good sources out there, it happens. And so we wanted a way to ensure that we have, human beings, and that we don't need to necessarily go all qual to get that, because
Yeah.
we still want the balance of the quantitative insights. So this solution's been really nice because when you get to sort of the video component of the tool, and how we deliver that, you get to hear those insights sort of brought to life first person, and not with just 2 or 3 individuals, but in sizable numbers. So it's a really great balance of the qual and the quant, and seeing the human insights come to life.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to double tap on that there, Tara, to your point, every time you run research with NIT, we're able to actually gather video responses from the respondent. And we're able to run that through our AI, which then has that video across 10 different verification metrics, looking at everything from are they speaking on topic to can you hear and see them clearly? So at the end of the day, the data you're getting is really high quality, and that you're talking to people who are who they say they are, which is not unfortunately always the case in a lot of the research that's being run today. One of the great aspects of video, aside from using it for QAing your responses, is also using video to really bring some of your insights to life. We're really excited about the idea of bringing that voice of the consumer to a lot of the research that our partners are doing. I know this has been a huge opportunity for T-Mobile, and something you guys have been leveraging a lot as well. What are some of the key benefits that you're seeing from being able to bring that voice of the customer to life through video research?
It's engaging, it's stickier. One of my favorite things to do, and another best practice on my team, is when we create these sort of sizzle reels or key findings from studies, we'll sometimes start a meeting by just showing that. And it's amazing how people will come into a conference room, and instead of chit-chatting amongst themselves, when they start seeing the reel and listening and seeing what consumers are saying, and immediately they're engaged, they're on topic. It's already starting to kind of sink in. But I think the other really cool benefit here is because this is married with AI, we know that like the video is representative of the key themes. So something that I think is just part of human nature and what we've done historically is when we've done qualitative groups, for example, or IDIs, you tend to pull forward the people who might be most articulate or say something funny or are just visually more engaging. And that's a bias we all have. And that implicit bias can actually detract from making sure you're pulling the most thematic insights through. And so that's another piece I like, is like you sort of have that insurance that the videos you're seeing in sort of the thematic areas are in fact a theme, and not just somebody you thought was really engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note too, is by doing video research, you're just getting you're also able to talk to people in the comfort of their own homes, in the comfort of their, in front of their own cameras. So on that bias, there's bias on the person. There might be bias when you're analyzing it, but it also reduces bias, this type of research, this asynchronous video research, in the data that's being collected as well.
That's exactly right. There's bias
Yeah,
everywhere, but like this mitigates a lot of them. I think there's still a time and a place for the old school focus group, but more and more we need to kind of catch people where they are in the moment. Um, it makes it a much easier to kind of do task oriented videos, all those things. It's just richer, I feel like, if you kind of meet people where they are, it's much more authentic.
absolutely. And one of the great things about running asynchronous video is also the scale at which you can do it, right? You can talk to hundreds, if not thousands of people But that's also one of the downfalls of running video research, right? How do you actually go about analyzing all that data in a way, to your point, that is unbiased, where you can easily identify those themes. And that's really where our AI video analysis tools come into place. And you can kind of see some examples of that here. But as you know, our AI transcribes all those videos. It generates key insights and a summary. It builds out those theme trees for you. And most importantly, you're always just one click away from seeing the citations, which specific videos are being pulled into these themes. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. How have you guys been using the AI analysis to analyze these videos at scale, and what benefit has that brought into the research that you're doing at T-Mobile?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different tools here that we've been able to leverage. And I love sort of that marriage of being able to see and hear the video with the clear transcriptions, and then sort of all the demographic info that's kind of built in around each respondent. And so when we've gone in and played around with this, sometimes it's to really pull out an additional theme beyond what the AI analysis has done, or sort of double click into it, do some profiling. So like, let's say we understand the theme, and then you can very quickly, by seeing all the aggregated videos that kind of fell into that insight, who are those people? You can sort of do some profiling. Maybe this was more true among sort of urban respondents or that kind of thing. So it's helped us kind of double click into doing some of the profiling of the respondents. You can also use the Ask NIT feature, which is really great if you want to literally ask NIT, who is this? Who felt most strongly about this, or why something rose to the top, et cetera. You can use that feature, which we've done quite a bit of. But the tool's really easy when you want to modify the videos as well. You can, pull from the transcription, which is what I tend to do, or you can hump by word, which also is probably another whole additional benefit. Is we've gone back to older studies that we've done with you guys, like some of the early ones. We're like, you know what? I think a bunch of people were talking about blah, blah, blah. Not even something that was the core part of the topic. And we're able to like remine that research, which is huge for us, saves us a ton of time and money. Or sometimes we'll get asked a question internally that doesn't really merit standing up a net new piece of research. Like, are a lot of people mentioning blank when they talk about like switching carriers? Maybe they're searching for some pain points. And you're like, well, let's just go see if there's something in some of our older studies. And this makes it really easy to search and find verbatims.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's one of the great things about, having all these AI tools at your fingertips. Your research is always living and breathing, right? It's not in a PDF that gets kind of filed away in a drive or somewhere, right? It's there, it's living and breathing, and it's something that you can easily go back and kind of re-index through the AI here. I also want to maybe circle back to a really interesting use case you shared earlier, which was how you guys have been using these videos to bring the data to life. I think one of the coolest use cases for video research is being able to use it to bring some of these insights to life by having your stakeholders hear directly from the consumers. To enable that, or to kind of facilitate that, we've built an entire workflow called Showreels, which allow you to really easily take the videos that matter most, highlight the portion of the transcripts that you want to include, drag and drop it in order, and build these sizzle reels out really quickly. I'm curious how you have been using the Showreels feature. It sounds like you've seen a lot of great benefit from it already, and kind of where this kind of pops up in terms of providing the most value in how you're sharing this research with your stakeholders.
Yeah, we try and embed as many of these as we can into all of our reports and let the videos sort of speak for themselves. But I will say one particular use case is a lot of times we are the bearers of some bad news. My team needs to go back to our internal stakeholders and say, that idea was not well received, or, it's this thing that we thought was going to get people excited enough to switch carriers is not that exciting enough to get them to switch. And I think what's really hard when you have sort of that news to share with internal stakeholders who maybe, have been working on a project for a really long time and expected it to be more receptive, et cetera. It really does help to sort of bring that objectivity into the room or into the report. You're hearing it directly from consumers. There's no filtering. It's clear that, we're we're sharing the news as openly and honestly as possible. So I think for us, we use it that way too. And it's not always like dire, but it's also sometimes like the things that aren't working well and opportunity areas too, to hear that directly, so like no one thinks that it's us sort of synthesizing and coming up with those findings, that it truly is direct from the consumer.
Yeah, that's a really great point. At the end of the day, hearing it directly from the market is the most kind of true feedback you can get, and this is a great way to do that for your stakeholders. So, on that note, to talk about how do you actually get to those decisions faster, and we talked a little bit about how you can bring some of those questions that people might be asking, the answers, the insights from them to life. But one of the big opportunities you mentioned was like, how do we actually go from a research objective that we might have, from a business question, and actually get to that final insight, to that final decision a lot faster. And that's really where we are really excited about the different applications for AI, and are really excited to be announcing our latest feature here, Report Ready, which helps you get to that top line report that helps answer all those insights, or helps answer all those research objectives for you, through developing this top line report in 24 hours. And so what we're seeing is one of the biggest benefits of that is, you're able to get to a pretty similar outcome that you would get from, maybe running research with a full service agency that might take weeks or months, in as little as 70 hours through this Report Ready Insights platform or feature. And the way we do that is we take all that context that you share in your research objectives, the audience that you share with us, develop a questionnaire with that, develop an analysis plan with that, which then guides that top line report. And within 24 hours of your data being fielded, you now have access to this stakeholder ready top line report. It answers all your business and research objectives, gives you key recommendations and takeaways, and ultimately just helps you get to that final stakeholder ready report that you can then share internally, to help answer some of those questions. I know getting to that insight faster was a huge opportunity for you guys. So curious how you guys have been using, NIT, and some of our tools here like Report Ready, to help accelerate your speed to insight.
Yeah. I feel like this is like the niche that you guys fill, because we always want everything. We don't want trade-offs. And almost always in research, there's going to be some level of trade-off. It's like, if you want something overnight, your sample's going to look, and so now, because it's this nice combination of like templatized, or things that we kind of commonly hold true and you have learned to expect from us or plan for, like the kind of cuts we want from our sample pretty much every time, with the ability still to customize and have some DIY component to it. That combination helps us just move super fast. I've never seen anything that moves this quickly, truly end to end, and still getting us like the insights and the cuts we want, and that qual sort of flavor brought to the table. That's just awesome. Especially like this idea of kind of report ready too, where exactly the types of ways that we serve up our insights, beyond the cuts, just sort of like what we're looking for, and sort of maybe it's around pain points, et cetera. But because we know that and we're planning for it, it just gets generated so much faster. And it's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for that. I'm glad you guys have had a good experience with the platform. And I think the one of the key aspects there is this combination of our AI with our research team. I know you work really closely with your dedicated research team that really takes the time to understand how you guys have been running research on our platform, but also research generally to make sure that's reflected in the AI. And that's a really big reason why we're able to get to that kind of experience where you don't feel like you have to make a compromise anymore between cost, speed, and rigor. We truly believe with AI, you can have the best of both worlds between DIY experience in terms of costs and speed, but that rigor that you would get from more of like a full service or managed service partner as well. Now, I know within this tool, there's been a couple different workflows that you guys have really enjoyed when it comes to further analyzing the data after the top line's ready. One of those being the kind of ability to create these different cohorts or audience cuts. Could you share a little bit more how you've used that in the research that you guys have been running?
Well, there are certain audience cuts that we almost always, as you can imagine, like our customers versus prospects or customers of specific competitive carriers, consistent age cohorts that we have, or the way that we look at consumers that might be kind of slightly different than like the buckets that you would typically see in age segmentations. So there are certain like sort of the T-Mobile ways that we look at data. And part of why we do that, there are a lot of reasons, but it helps us map this to other pieces of research really easily. So we can kind of, pull this data and kind of see how it stacks up against other things. It helps us with benchmarking, but just that ability also to be really fast. Sometimes we might still be pulling a report, but I can go in like as soon as this is live and we're getting respondents and start to see, what it looks like that thing that we thought was for 55 plus is really working. Like all signs point to it really being amazing, even before we have like a full report generated. Just because we've usually got our eyes on something very specific. We tend to build our concepts and ideas and brand strategy for specific consumers in general.
Yeah.
So it's just a really quick way to get an early read too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of already done. The cut's already made for you, so you can just go in and quickly see what those insights are from that cut. And then you mentioned our Ask Nit feature, right? It's this ability to ask the AI any question. It'll generate this slide with the key insight as the headline, as well as visualize the different data, visualize the data for you there. Have you guys been using AskNet? What are some common ways this pops up in your research?
I think like from a concept standpoint, like concept testing, we've used it to ask Nit why one of the concepts was preferred or what was not liked about something, or even an aspect like a particular feature or benefit that might have been called out in a concept. So what did people like about the device? And then you can kind of get like, it's that double click, I feel like. Because the AI tool itself is really good about pulling out the big themes. But, sometimes somebody will say, hey, did anybody mention that they didn't like the size of that thing or the color, or that they had concerns about blank? And sometimes those questions come after you've already fielded and you didn't have a chance to include it maybe in your original questionnaire or screener. That happens all the time. I'm sure researchers listening to this have had that. And so that gives you a chance to go in and say like, well, I'll see if that popped up. I'll go ask Nit, basically.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this earlier too, but another common use case we see, and which it sounds like you guys have used as well, is going back to old research, where you might have asked that question, maybe not as directly, but you want to go and see if those insights still exist within that data set. And this is a great way to get to that point.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and we're coming up on, I think, our 1 year anniversary since our first project that you guys ran on the Knit platform. And it's been so much fun working with you and the team to run all different types of research. But I would say most of the work that you guys are doing falls within one of these two buckets. How do you think about the use cases that make most sense to run on a platform like Knit? Where are you guys seeing the most value across the different use cases you guys run research?
We've gotten a tremendous amount of value, Anish, out of kind of everything we've thrown at you. Uh, Initially, what we do with a lot of our proof of concepts when we're first chatting with vendors, if you remember way back, is we did a concept test, and we always parallel path it with something, that's more tried and true for us internally. And you guys knocked it out of the park. And so we kind of started just giving Knit more opportunities in the concept testing, product innovation space. And I think, like, for me, part of it is because this is a big focus area for my team, but this is an amazing use case for concept testing and innovation. Just because you can be iterative, you can keep going back, you don't have to compromise speed, you can pull forward these artifacts, these videos that are going to live in perpetuity. When you think about, like, we have shorter term types of things we innovate, and then some things that are on a much longer timeline where we're just in like phase one of a multi-phase kind of development plan. But then I would say, because you guys succeeded for us in that concept test, then we brought forward some brand strategy asks. And I feel like that is also a great place for leveraging Knit because of the power of chatting with consumers and getting those the voice of the consumer kind of at the table. And this is important to us because when we think about anything that touches our brand today and tomorrow, we always want to get this balance of, like, what do our current customers think about that? How does that play out with them? And then the prospects, and getting that kind of balance of both of them quickly can be really, really time consuming when you want to go out and do deep qual. Not to say we don't still do those things, but I think, again, we're moving at lightning speed all the time, and our teams are getting pressure to just do more faster. And brand strategy asks are often really complex. And so this tool is one that we're able to leverage, again, for all the things that we've been chatting about for the past few minutes: voice of the consumer, the speed, the quality of the sample, and just the ability to have that sort of DIY plus templatized, or kind of that report ready planning. Both of these buckets, I think, great use cases for Knit.
Yeah. Well, that is incredibly helpful to hear, Tara, in terms of how you guys have been using it, where you guys have found the most value. That about wraps up our presentation. I know we were really looking forward to doing this in person at the TRE event, but this is the second best thing we can do here virtually. So I really appreciate you carving out the time to speak with us today and share a little bit more about how you and the team have been using the platform. It's been so much fun working with you all. And it's so great to kind of hear how where Knit has been able to provide some of the value for the work you guys have done on the platform. With that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we can take it from there.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.